This is against the Kiddush Vov, and as you could probably guess, the Nikud of this against the Kiddush, like against the Kiddush Hey, and like against the Kiddush Dalet, like against the Kiddush Gimel, is about the Inyan of giving tzedakah. Okay? And he says like this, he brings, the way I would like to understand this, what I think the pshat is, that the Alter Rebbe to be koch gewaldig in tzedakah. And he demanded from his chassidim to give tzedakah with Mesiras Nefesh, because he felt that in our generations we cannot solve our problems and our needs for tshuva and so forth through Torah, through tefillah. We have to have tzedakah. In other words, we're not in the madrega like in the olden generations. You can have an Yigas the Kiddush test. There was talk of a Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Today ours is through Maisa and tzedakah. And he expected chassidim to give tzedakah with Mesiras Nefesh, especially tzedakah for Eretz Yisrael. So the Alter Rebbe had the koilo of chassidim, which later became koilo Chabad. In other words, a whole group of chassidim went to live in Israel, and the Yidden in Europe were supporting them. So the Alter Rebbe, a group of chassidim went to live in Eretz Yisrael. It was called koilo chassidim, and the Alter Rebbe supported them, and them is all the Hasidic Rebbe supported them. And Alter Rebbe used to send around the Shadar, he used to raise money from the Chassidim, and he used to tell each Chassid how much they should give. And sometimes what he demanded of the Chassidim was mamash aniyah from Mesiras Nefesh in tzedakah, and it was an avodah. It was an avodah of the Alter Rebbe personally, it was an avodah by his Chassidim and so forth. And when he would do this, he would send a new letter. I figured this is how it was. Every year, every 2 years, he would write a letter, and the purpose of the letter was to be ma'oyer chassidim again about tzedakah, and in order to add a new chayis, he wrote a new toichni as the kaled. Didn't just say please give tzedakah. He would write a bir or a pirush on a pasuk and a ma'ameh chazal. So against the Kiddush Hey, Vayas David Shem was about tzedakah. Against the Kiddush Dalid about tzedek lefan of Yahalach, V'yasem Moderach Po'amav, and Yisrael Negol Elabet tzedakah was about tzedakah. V'yilbush tzedakah Kisirien, V'kevi Shuz Bereshe were about tzedakah. This against the Kiddush is the pasuk Zerei tzedakah, that somebody who plants seeds tzedakah, tzchad, the reward is emes. He gets emes. Okay, and let me say this before we even go into it, that the opposite of emes is not necessarily sheker. The opposite of emes is pshora. Emes means the absolute truth. Anything less than the absolute truth is compromise. In many contexts, you would say that the opposite of emes is chesed. What does chesed mean? I'll be nice to you, I'll forgive you, you're not perfect. Emes is the highest truth. So Zereya Tzedakah, somebody who plants seeds of tzedakah, the schar is that in Avodas Hashem he gets not just a compromise of Elokus, he gets emes. Pirush, b'mishli yiral. Pirush just means Sheschar, the Yesad Tzedakah, the reward that one gets for planting the mitzvah of tzedakah, midas emes, is the midah, the measure of truth. Okay? To explain this, what does it mean that the reward for tzedakah is emes? So he brings a pasuk. See what the pasuk says: Titin emes Yankiv. The Eibishter gives truth to Yankiv Avinu, and of course this doesn't make any sense. Why not? Because Yankiv is midas emes. Ushvach the kuchabrichu mesad the navi. The Zayah says that the Eibishter in this pasuk Titin emes Yankiv, the navi is praising Hashem that he gives emes Yankiv. K'meisha kasu b'Zayah Hakadosh. And it's written in the Zayah Pirush, the translation Shakadosh Baruch Hu, that the Eibishter who Hanaisin adds midas emes, the attribute of emes, of absolute truth, for Yankiv. So the Chalav asked the Alter Rebbe the obvious question: is it that Yankiv Avinu was lacking by himself emes? The Eibush has to give it to him from above. The whole midah of Yankiv Avinu is emes. So what's the pshat? Titin emes Yankiv, that you have to add emes to Yankiv Avinu. And explaining Titin emes Yankiv, that you have to add emes to Yankiv Avinu, is going to explain that the reward for giving tzedakah is also emes. So the Rebbe goes into it and he says like this: it's known. The midah of Yankiv is Rachmanis. The midah of Yankiv is Rachmanis, right? Now, what does Rachmanis mean? I don't have any Rachmanis on you because you're a perfect specimen. You're not lacking anything. You're not missing anything. It's not about men just lacking. You have Rachmanis, right? The Rachmanis is Dafka ala Shofim. But what is Rachmanis and Avodah? In Bein Adam Lamokim, what is Rachmanis? Bein Adam Lamokim Chesed is Avas Hashem. Bein Adam Lamokim Yireh Givur is Yiras Hashem. What's Bein Adam Lamokim? Rachmanis. So the Alter Rebbe says, what's the connection between the Jew and God Almighty and the midah of Rachmanis? It is what comes. May you say it is from an arousal of Rachamim, of great compassions, believe Adam in the heart of man. Halita Talakus Shabanafshe, and the divine spark which is in his soul. Which is far away from the light of the Eibishter. Kasher, because Heilech B'cheshech Havli Heilam is walking in the darkness of the frivolousness, of the emptiness, of the substancelessness of Eilam of the world. So the Rachmanis Klapi Shmaya is the Rachmanis on my neshama. My neshama is never trapped in Eilam Haza. Even if I'm a Yid and I serve Hashem and I do wonderful things, I'm never trapped in this world. Or to say it in context, I'm never deprived of emes. Maybe I have a connection to the Eibishter, but it's not emes. And this definition of Rachmanis you had in Tanya, Sof Pedek Chof Ches, and again in Pedek Mem Hey, also in the end of the Pedek, the Rebbe said you had to have Rachmanis on your neshama. Says the Rebbe, they stated Rachmanis Zu, how does the Jew arouse Rachmanis on his neshama? Boy, it comes when a person understands and knows the greatness of the Eibishter. What is the greatness of the Eibishter? Even the highest worlds. That the higher and higher till beyond an end. Still, when you compare to the Eibishter Mamish, it's all insignificant to him. Right? The highest world is as remote vis-a-vis the Eibishter as we are. Their flow and their life, Ein Irak, is nothing more than Miziv ve'ha'ara array and a shine me'ois echad from one letter. Mishma Yizbarach for the Eibishter's name, Kemaimer as it's written in Chazal. And we had it in the previous, again, as Zakedesh at great length. B'yud, Nivra Elam Haba, the Eibishter created Elam Haba, which means all the spirituals with the letter Yud, V'chuli, and so forth. And this world is created with the letter He. So, even though there are worlds that relative to our own are very exalted, with an enormous amount of chayas of the key, right? But it's only higher than us. Klape de Eibishter, it's ha'ara. It's not etz. V'hinei. V'ziv ha'ara, so in this ray and in this light, shu espash just achayas mishmei is barak, which is only the expansion of the life from the Eibishter's holy name. Hach yes el yenim etachtenim, to give light to the higher and lower worlds. Says the Rebbe, in as much as this is concerned, hu yesh hevdol v'hefesh. There's differences and distinctions between the higher worlds and the lower world. This world was created with the letter Hey, as we discussed in the previous against Kedesh, and the Eilam was created with the letter Yud. Not only the basic difference of Yud and K, but more specific differences in each world. That it is, it depends first of all on the Yud and the K, and second of all, each word is created with letters, right? We know the word, the Eibishter created the world with Oisius, and the Shinuya Yitzrufa Oisius affect the various different creations. Shehein Hein, that water, the Yitzrufa Oisius, Hamshachas Achayes Mimidezah Vizbarach Shmei, bringing down life from the Eibishter's Midas, but the Eibishter's Midas are only 6. And mitzad the Midas, there can only be 6 creations. But because of the Oisius, each Midah can create a variety of different things. And if you recall, the mashal that he gave over there was Oyer and Mayim. Mitzad Chesed is going to be one Ashpah. But mitzad Oisius, Oyer comes from Chesed, and Mayim comes from Chesed, and a Ribuy of and Evroim come from Chesed as well. So there's the basic differences between worlds, and there's the more complex differences between creations. And those are all the differences. Either Mamshech Aval, however, Lagab, we talk about Hashem himself. And in the context of this again, Kedesh, we're going to say, compared to truth, the Ha'ara and the Ziv, the Yud and the K, and all the Shinuyim we spoke about a moment ago, this would be the opposite of Emes, compromise, or Chesed, right? This is where the differences lie. When you're talking about Emes, the Pasuk says, Aniyah, the Shem Leishan, you see the Eibush doesn't change in creation. He doesn't change from the changes that take place in the chain reaction of creations of the worlds, from the highest level to the lowest level. And I suppose that this would be interpreted as being mokim. There's ruchni is dika mokim and gashmi is dika mokim, higher mokim and lower mokim. As far as the Eibishter is concerned, there's no distinctions. Just as the Eibishter is in the highest worlds, is precisely in the same way found in the lowest worlds, in as much as the emes of the Eibishter is concerned. About the light of Seif of Kalalman. Ubein, in addition, there's no distinction as far as Hashem is concerned, and the differences of time. That even though for us there's a past and a present and a future, but just as he was the only thing that was, one and only, Lifnei sheishis mei bereishis, before the Eibishter created the world. Kach hu ata, it's exactly the same way now as well. That achar abriya, even though the Eibishter created the world. Nevertheless, to him, there's no changes whatsoever. V'hainu, and why is this? That the idea that this shinui, sayin mokem, sayin zman, say bechlal, and say befrat, is lagabe the ha'ara and the ziv. But lagabe the emes of the Eibishter, there's no shinuyim. The answer is mishum, because when you're talking about the truth of Hashem, shahakel, that all of it is ka'ayim ve'efes mamish, it's more absolutely nothing mamish. Lagabe mehusei vatzamusik, compared to the Eibishter himself, right? And he explains, a person could speak infinite word, and he speaks one word, or one letter. One letter what he could think. And of course you can think faster than you could speak. But even one letter of thought, when you compare to the general, to the whole soul of intelligence, and the essence of the person. And in Tanya Perek Chafalaf, it's mashma that seichel is the essence of the person. By way of analogy, you and I will all understand that one word or one letter is totally insignificant compared to the nefesh. And to be sure, even this mashal is not adequate. You can't even say that the erech of the world, lagabe the Eibishter, is like a letter or like a word. Discussed in other places, and the Alter Rebbe is mitzayin to Shadi Yechet Mulu. So, there's a lower level, and lagabe this lower level, the worlds change, the chayes eliki, and the higher level there's no change whatsoever. And this higher level is called emes. This is what we say, Hamelech, the king, Hamerumah, which is exalted, Lavade, and he's alone, may us from before time. Pirush, this means, Kamesha may us, just as before time, Kedem Abriya, prior to creation. Hayahu Lavadehu, he was the only thing that was. Kach Ata, it's precisely the same way now as well. Humerumah v'chuli, he's exalted. Umisnasi, and he's Hayam Miyamais Oilam from the days of the world. Does anybody know what is the opposite of Yamais Oilam? Yemei Kedem. There's Yemei Kedem and Yemei Oilam. The Eibishter is misnasem, Yemei Oilam, he's misnasem, even Yemei Kedem. Okay, Pirush, in other words, Shuhuram v'nisa, he's exalted and above, L'mayla, higher and even higher. Mebechin is man from the category of time. Hanikra b'shem Yemei Oilam, which is called the days of the world. And he's also removed infinitely from the space and from the hishtalshus of the creation. V'hainu lefi, why is this? Because Shechai is Kol Yemei Selim, the life of all of the world, and all the time, and all of the space, it's all created from Malchus, discussed in someplace else, and I think this means Shadichet Namun at the beginning of Perek Zayin. So this would be Chesed. Chesed means the Tzimtzum and the Ha'ara which the Eibush is creating the world. Emes is the Eibush is above it all, and in as much as Emes is concerned, the world still doesn't exist. Correct? So think about this. Harachmanes Gedeilam Yed Miyed. It's an unbelievable Rachmanis. Al nitzot on the spark, Hashechem beguf, which is resting in the body, Hachoshav, which is dark, Ve'evim, which is darkened, Mishcha the chivya, the skin of the snake, Ha'olol, turn the page, which is liable, the kabel tumah, to become unclean, Uli is goyle, to become oiskelasa, to become filthy and soiled, B'chol ha'taivus, Rachmana l'tzlan, all the taivus. When you think about your neshama, the your neshama is a piece of emes, and it's trapped not just in a world, but it's trapped in a hishtalshus of relativism and equivocation. And it has no shaykhs to emes, and it's shaykhs even to taivus and to disgusting things. Lule shakadosh baruch hu maginle. Not that Hashem is a shield. V'neisel le'eiz v'ta'atzumes, the Eibishter gives a might, and ta'atzumes means very strong power. Luchem al gufat abayis, to overcome, to fight and overcome the body and its desires, well not to conquer them, but Oshikosim, but it says in the Siddur, Adoin uzein b'chol, he's the God that gives us might. Mogen, he's the shield, Yishein of our salvation, b'chol. So the Rebbe says, this is the Rachmanis. Your neshama is a shtik alakus, and it's deprived of its own true identity, yeah? The neshama is deprived of its own true identity, and it's trapped in this guf nefesh habahamis.